We are very lucky to have with us live in the studios this morning Susan Crane and Lynne Greenwald. Susan Crane is with Jonah House in Baltimore, Maryland, and Lynne Greenwald is with the Ground Zero Center for Nonviolent Action. And they were both arrested for an act of nonviolent civil disobedience at the Bangor Trident nuclear submarine base in Kitsap County on November 2nd. A Disarm Now Trident Plowshares action, and we're going to be talking about that over the next half hour. Susan and Lynne, I want to thank you both very much for coming and spending time with us this morning.
Thank you. Thank you for having us, Mike.
Start out and tell us, how did you get involved in the issue of nuclear weapons and why this particular action that you took part in on November 2nd?
Well, you know, as you grow up, you learn about Hiroshima and you learn about Nagasaki. And I saw pictures of what happened there, and I couldn't get those pictures out of my mind. The pictures of people burnt, the pictures of shadows where there was a person and then the bomb hit and there was no person, where people were vaporized. The pictures of people with their skin falling off them. And I know that the weapons we have now are much stronger, there's more blast and more radiation than Hiroshima. For example, the warheads that are at Naval Base Kitsap, Bangor, some of them have 7 times the blast and heat and radiation of Hiroshima, and some of them have 32 times that. So for me, I can't forget that. You know, that's 20 miles from where we are here in Seattle. And that just stays in my mind. And I feel that morally and legally I have to say no to that.
I got involved with the anti-nuclear movement in the mid-'70s. It was following the Vietnam War protests. And I was at an action at the Pentagon and saw 2 people pour ashes in the middle of the Pentagon. At that time we had access to. And I had this really strong visceral reaction of, this is truth, this is what I must do. With my life I have to show that nuclear weapons are wrong. And in that process, during that preparation time, I saw films that were recently released about the atomic bombings and testings that happened, about the firestorming in Tokyo, which wasn't a nuclear weapon, but just as incredibly horrible. Shortly after, I went to New York City to a United Nations and met Habakasha, survivors of the bombings, and like Susan, was just horrified at what the human cost was of dropping that bomb. I moved to Montana in 1980, and shortly afterwards found out about the nuclear trains traveling from Amarillo, Texas to the Trident subbase in Washington. I was working at a shelter, 3 months pregnant with a few months pregnant with my first daughter, and had a really strong reaction about the weapons were actually sitting overnight behind the shelter where I was working and living. And shortly after came to Ground Zero to take part in the Ground Zero community 26 years ago.
All right, so tell us more about the action that took place on November 2nd.
So on November 2nd, which is All Souls Day, it's a special day when we remember all those who have gone before us. And we were remembering the war dead, people who've died in wars in the last 100 years. And we went to the naval base, and our hope at that time was to either get to the Tridents, to Delta Pier, or to the Swift Pack, the strategic weapons facility where the weapons are stored that aren't at sea on the Tridents. And we went to the perimeter fence, and we cut through the fence, and we walked north. We walked along roads and through trails until we got to the weapons storage area.
We were on the base for about 4 hours. We got to the first fence outside of SwiftPack at around sunrise that morning, and cut through the first fence. We all went on after hanging a banner on the first fence, the banner said "Disarm now, Plowshares, Trident, illegal and immoral." We had about 20 feet between fences. There were large sensors that I assume tripped off the Marines' security. We got to the second fence, which was different than the other fences we went through in that it had a barbed wire around, high-tension barbed wire. Cut through the second fence, and we all got through that second fence and were face-to-face with bunkers storing the nuclear weapons at that time.
So I want to talk for a minute about what we brought with us. We brought with us symbols. We brought with us hammers, household hammers that we had to begin a disarmament process. We were remembering Isaiah, the prophet Isaiah, who talks about they shall beat their swords into plowshares and spears into pruning hooks. Nations won't make war against other nations or train for war anymore. So we were saying that they in the scriptures is us, that we have to begin the disarmament process. And so it's very symbolic, but we brought hammers to begin to hammer on the bunkers or hammer on the Trident if we could. And we also brought with us baby bottles that had our own blood in it. And we wanted to show the results of the use of those weapons. And that blood is spilled when those weapons are used. And so we sprinkled some of the blood on the roads as we came in. I was thinking that at this site, at this naval base, there are rivers of blood that are starting there. And we were showing that by sprinkling some of the blood on the roads that are used. And we put sprinkled blood on the fence also around SwiftPack and on some covers in the ground that we found at SwiftPack. And also we brought sunflower seeds, which are symbols of hope for us, that new growth will happen, and the sunflower is the international symbol for disarmament, for nuclear disarmament.
We also had a letter for the base commander with us requesting that the disarmament process begin now. And I had a photograph of a friend's granddaughter because the future of all of our children around the world is implicated by not only the use of nuclear weapons and Trident, but the threat to use it, which is a criminal action. We went there to uphold international law and the Geneva Convention by serving as policemen, sheriffs, saying these weapons are illegal, their existence is a criminal act, and we need to begin the disarmament process now.
So you're like citizen weapon inspectors to a degree.
Yes.
And SwiftPack, perhaps you already mentioned this, is the Strategic Weapons Facility Pacific. Mm-hmm. It is it a building? Is it a complex of buildings? Give us more of a description of what SwiftPack is.
Well, it's a large area that has about 84 bunkers in it. And there might be 84 lights. I don't know. There's a lot of lights. There seems to be a bunker and a light, huge light next to it, and there's some guard towers. And then it's all surrounded by this double fence. We could see one side of the bunkers, and they appeared to be, the part that we could see were like little cottages. So there was looked like there was a little cottage and a light. But we know that underground there That's where the weapons are held, or the materials that are used to make the weapon blast.
All right. And this particular action you began early on the morning of November 2nd?
Yes.
I assume it was dark out?
Yes.
3 in the morning? Or
It was around 2 when we got inside the base.
And the first, to get just inside the base, you have to go over a fence, is that correct? Or
We could have gone over a fence. As it turned out, we cut through the fence.
Okay. And then you were walking down roads for, it took you 4 hours to get there, is that right? So.
Yes.
And I have to imagine, did you know where you were going? Did you have a map? And
Well, anyone can go on Google Maps and see the roads that are in the base, and that's what we did.
And within the base, did you know that you were going to go to SwiftPack?
We decided we were thinking of either going to Delta Pier or SwiftPack. And when we got close to Delta Pier, we decided to go down to SwiftPack.
All right. And what was the base's response when you penetrated that second, when you set off the detectors and penetrated that second fence?
We actually, the Marines were there to greet us, I guess. They were coming when we got through the second fence, and we're standing there. We had an opportunity to hold the banner and to put down our weapons, to
Put down our hammers.
Put down our hammers on the ground, our weapons, I'm sorry. Put down our hammers. We had pruning shears for blackberry bushes, that kind of thing. And we laid them down on the ground. And we knelt down, said the Lord's Prayer. Father Bix had some water and performed an exorcism on that land. And the Marines came, and I don't know if you want to talk about what happened then.
Well, first I want to say there were 5 of us that went. Mm-hmm. And one of the other people was Steve Kelly. He's a Jesuit priest from Oakland. He's been working with the Catholic workers. And Sister Ann Montgomery, who's a religious, a sister of the Sacred Heart of Jesus. And she's from New York City. And Father Bix from Tacoma. I'm sure many of your listeners know who he is. He has started the Tacoma Catholic Worker and has been there for decades.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And the response when they got in there, were they pretty forceful, I would imagine, in their handling of you?
Well, first they watched us, as Lynn was saying, because we had time to be there and kneel down and pray. And then they moved us apart, separated us, and eventually we found ourselves down on the ground and cuffed and hooded, and we stayed there for about 4 hours.
On the ground, or did they take you somewhere else?
No, on the ground in SwiftPack.
Okay. And did you try and talk to them? Did you have any communications with them?
Well, I did try to talk to them, and what I found out is that after I was hooded, I'm sure you've seen pictures of prisoners in Guantanamo or Afghanistan or Kandahar or Bagram. They have hoods on their heads. I never expected that here in this country an American citizen would be hooded after they were arrested, but we were hooded with these opaque sandbags coverings, I guess. I don't know what they were, but we couldn't see out of them. And it's a very interesting thing because the Marines that are holding guns on us all the time don't know if they don't know if we're man or woman, if we're older or younger, or who we are, because you can't tell when someone's face is entirely covered up. And they yelled at us to be quiet. They didn't want us to talk at all. So
people tried to make statements about why we were there, about the weapons. Father Bix was singing. I remember that. And conversations, but we were told repeatedly to be quiet. I got uncomfortable and was trying to turn and was told, reminded someone in a very quiet voice would say, "Stay on your stomach, stay on your stomach." And so finally we were removed from SwiftPack by being carried out by the Marines through the fence openings that we made.
Interesting. So they didn't take you out through a gate?
No. No, we were still hooded and cuffed, carried. There were, I understand, one person in our group who actually could see more and heard more of the conversations about this, said that there were 6 Marines carrying us out. I remember asking, where are you taking me? Let me walk our walk. You don't have to carry me. They took us through both fences around SwiftPack backwards, hooded. We were kind of dropped on, at least I was dropped on my stomach, and then the base security took custody of us, handcuffed us, put us in a vehicle, and took us to what we know now is the NCIS and FBI interrogators.
Would it be safe to say everyone, the 5 people that participated in this, were all older people?
Yes, that would be safe to say. Our ages are from, 60. I guess, 60 to 83. So, you know, what I say is we're old enough to know that nuclear weapons...
Take care. There you go.
We're old enough to know that nuclear weapons are a danger, that it isn't right to have weapons and threaten to use them, which the United States has not only is the only country who's used these nuclear weapons, but we've threatened to use them over the years. Almost every president has threatened to use them. And we still say we'll use them first. We haven't disavowed that. And we claim the right to use a weapon that can exterminate all life in a city. To me, that's just so wrong. You know, my faith teaches us we're supposed to love our enemies, we're supposed to love one another, and we're supposed to find nonviolent ways to resolve differences. And just the existence of these weapons is an affront to my faith.
Every day we ask young people to sacrifice their lives, and their lives are being lost either in the military or as innocent victims in war. And as an adult, as a mother, as a human being in this country, I have the responsibility to do what I can to stop nuclear weapons from ever being used. And certainly capable of making that statement in what I felt to be the strongest way possible is we can't afford to go on just talking about getting rid of nuclear weapons. We have to begin the process now, and we have to shift our priorities in this country to the funding the human needs, the real human needs of healthcare and housing and education. And we need to start that now. We need to turn things around.
So would it be fair to say that you believe what you were doing was waging peace?
Sure, I think we were. We were trying to say, let's disarm these weapons now, and we're willing to work to do that. You know, while we were talking here, I was thinking about President Obama and his talk in Prague, where he said that he declared America's commitment to seek peace and security of a world without nuclear weapons. And, you know, I take that very seriously. I think the people of Prague took it seriously, too. They were very excited about that. And I think the rest of the world does want a world without nuclear weapons. And, of course, as this country continues to enhance them, as Livermore Lab still designs the next generation of nuclear weapons, Other countries feel that in their own self-defense they need to have nuclear weapons. But I would hope we would take seriously the disarmament process.
Two questions that I know people who wouldn't agree with your methods would bring up. One being, were you prepared to? Did you expect potentially harsh treatment once you broke into the high security zone there?
It was definitely a possibility, and I was aware totally of what I was going into. The reality is although I was prepared for that, the reality of Trident, of those Trident II weapon systems, is far more horrible than a person can inflict upon me. And to address that violence is my goal in going onto the base.